Adama stood frozen, her hands trembling, as she clasped the edges of her tattered wrapper. The marketplace was alive with laughter, but none of it was kind. The women of Uradi surrounded her, their voices sharp like blades. "So you think the prince will really marry you?" One of them sneered, arms folded. "Look at her, she has nothing, not even proper sandals on her feet." Another mocked. Adama's throat tightened. She wanted to run, but where to? The entire village whispered about her, pointing fingers, laughing behind her back. She was the poorest woman in Uradi, a girl who spent most of her days alone, washing clothes by the stream and eating whatever wild food she could find. And yet, the impossible had happened. The prince had chosen her. The first time she met Prince Lado, she had been kneeling by the stream, scrubbing an old shawl between her fingers. She had looked up and there he was, tall, strong, dressed in the finest royal fabrics. His gaze had locked onto us and something shifted in the air, a strange kind of warmth. He had turned away immediately. A man like him had no business staring at a woman like her, but he had returned the next day and the next, always watching her with something she couldn't name. And then, days later, his royal messengers had arrived at her hut. The words had spread through Uradi like wildfire. The beautiful women of the village, daughters of warriors, traders, and nobles, were furious. How could the prince, the most powerful man in the kingdom, pick Adama, a nobody? Now standing in the center of the market with the entire village laughing at her, Adama wanted to disappear. "She is a fool if she thinks the prince will marry her," a woman said loudly. "Once he sees how useless she is, he will throw her back into the dust where she belongs." Adama clenched her fist. She should not care what they said, but their words burned like fire. A sudden hush fell over the market. The laughter stopped. The whispers died. Adama looked up, and her heart nearly stopped. Prince Lado was standing at the edge of the crowd, his dark eyes scanning the sea of the faces. When his gaze landed on Adama, something fierce flickered in expression. Without a word, he strode forward, patting the crowd as if they were nothing but air. When he reached her, he extended his hand. "Come," he said. His voice was deep, steady, commanding. Adama swallowed hard. This was it, the moment she had feared. She hesitated. The entire village was watching, waiting for her to embarrass herself. She could hear the women whispering, "She won't take his hand. She's too ashamed. She knows she's not worthy." Adama lifted her chin. Her heart was pounding, but she took a slow, deep breath and placed her hand in his. A collective gasp fell through the crowd. Prince Lado's grip was firm and warm. Without another word, he led her away. Behind them, the market erupted in chaos, and in Adama's mind, only one thought repeated itself. What am I walking into? Adama's feet felt like they didn't belong to her as she followed Prince Lado through the narrow paths of Uradi. The entire village stared, their whispers like invisible hands tugging at her, reminding her she did not belong beside him. Does she even know how to behave in a palace? She will embarrass him. Adama had it all, but she kept walking. The priest's hand was warm and steady around hers, but she knew deep down that this was not a love story. Not yet. This was a mistake waiting to happen. The grand gates of the palace loomed ahead, guarded by warriors. As they stepped inside, her stomach twisted. The palace smelled of incense and roasted meat, a scent so foreign to her that she almost felt dizzy. The women here were different, draped in silk, their necks adorned with golden beads. They barely glanced at her, but Adama could feel their silent judgment. She had no business being here. Then, a sharp voice cut through the air. "What is this nonsense?" A woman stepped forward, tall, regal, dressed in deep blue robes. Her sharp eyes flickered with anger as she looked at Adama. It was Queen Mother Zulai, Lado's mother. Adama's heart dropped. "Lado," the Queen Mother said, her voice controlled but deadly. "You walk into my palace holding the hand of a girl who does not belong?" Adama's fingers twitched in the prince's grasp, but he did not let go. "She's the woman I've chosen," Lado said simply. The queen's jaw tightened. "Are there no women left in Uradi?" she asked, her voice less with disdain. "A woman with no status, no wealth, no family name." Adama felt like she was shrinking. She wanted to disappear, but Lado's grip tightened. "Mother," he said calmly, "you taught me to see strength beyond riches. Adama has strength." Adama blinked. Strength? What did he see in her? The Queen Mother exhaled sharply, then turned to Adama with a look so piercing, it felt like she was peeling her skin off. "Tell me, girl," she said, her voice like cold steel. "Why should I allow a beggar to become a princess?" Adama swallowed. The room felt suffocating. Every royal in the room was watching, waiting for her to embarrass herself. Her lips trembled, but she spoke. "I never asked to be chosen," she said quietly. "I never imagined I would set foot in a place like this. But if your son believes I am worthy, then I will not shame him by acting like I am not." A gasp filled the room. Even Lado turned to look at her, something unreadable in his gaze. The Queen Mother's expression darkened, then she smiled, but it was not a kind smile. "Very well," she said. "You may stay." Adama let out a shaky breath, but then the Queen's smile widened. "Let us see if you can survive." Adama's stomach dropped. She had not won. She had only entered the battlefield. Adama barely slept. The silk sheet beneath her felt too soft, too unfamiliar. She lay in a massive bed in a room bigger than her entire heart, yet she felt like a prisoner. The Queen Mother's words echoed in her mind, "Let us see if you can survive." At dawn, before the palace even came to life, a loud knock jolted her up. The door swung open, and 3 palace maids stepped inside, their faces unreadable. "The Queen Mother has summoned you," one of them said coldly. Adama's heart pounded. She barely had time to dress before she was rushed through the long palace corridors, her bare feet silent against the cold floors. The palace smelled of morning dew and burning incense, but beneath it, Adama could sense something else: danger. Queen Mother was waiting in the courtyard, seated on a high wooden throne. A crowd had gathered, royal women, guards, and noblemen, all whispering among themselves. Adama's stomach twisted. Why was everyone here? "Come forward," the Queen Mother said, her voice smooth but sharp. Adama stepped closer. A large clay pot sat in the front of the queen. It was covered, but a faint hissing sound came from inside. Adama's hand grew clammy. "I have decided to test your courage," the Queen Mother announced. "A woman who will stand beside my stand must not be weak." Queen's lips curved slightly. "Inside this pot is something feared by many." She looked directly at Adama. "If you wish to prove your place, reach inside and take out whatever is hidden within." Adama froze. At trust in front of everyone, she glanced at the pot. The hissing grew louder. A sickening realization settled in her gut. There was a snake inside. A shiver ran down her spine. She hated snakes, everyone did, but as she looked up, she saw the Queen's Mother's mark and the judgment in the noble women's eyes. They were waiting for her to run, to prove she was too weak to belong here. Adama clenched her fists. She would not give them the satisfaction. Taking a slow breath, she stepped forward. Her heart slammed against her ribs as she lifted the pot's lid. A black snake crawled inside, its tongue flicking in and out. The crowd gasped. Adama's hand trembled, but she did not step back. Her mind screamed at her to run, but she forced herself still. She thought of her life before this, the hunger, the loneliness, the endless night of sleeping on cold floor with nothing but the sound of crickets outside her hut. She had survived the worst. Slowly, she lowered her hand into the pot. The snake hissed. Adama held her breath, fingers reaching blindly. And then she felt it. Not the snake's cold scale, but something hard and smooth beneath it. A wooden object. Without hesitating, she grabbed it and yanked her hand out. She stumbled back, heart racing. In her palm sat a beautifully carved wooden figurine of a lion. Gasps filled the courtyard. The Queen Mother's eyes narrowed. Adama stared at the figurine, her chest heaving. This had been the real test, not the snake, but her fear. Slowly she looked up and met the Queen Mother's gaze. Queen Mother said nothing, but for the first time she looked at Adama differently, not as a beggar, but as a woman who refused to be broken. The Queen Mother did not speak as she rose from her throne, her gaze unreadable. The silence in the courtyard stretched painfully, every noble woman waiting for a reaction. Then with a slow nod, she turned to the crowd. "She has passed," the Queen Mother announced. A mixture of shock and disappointment rippled through the gathering. The women who had been waiting for Adama to fail now looked at her with something else: envy. But Adama knew this was only the beginning. She was escorted back to her chamber, her hands still trembling from the encounter with the snake. She had proven her bravery, but the way the Queen Mother had looked at her made one thing clear: she was not welcome here. That night, as Adama lay on the soft bed staring at the golden ceiling, she had whispered outside her door, "She does not belong. She's only here because the prince is foolish. She will not last." Adama shut her eyes. Maybe they were right, but she will not run. The next morning, a servant knocked at her door. "The prince wishes to see you," he announced. Adama's stomach twisted. She had barely spoken to Lado since arriving at the palace. Did he regret choosing her? He was led to the royal garden where Prince Lado stood beneath a tree, waiting. When he turned and saw her, his face lit up. "You are brave," he said. Adama hesitated. "I had no choice." He smiled. "You always have a choice, but you choose to fight." Before she could respond, he pulled something from his pocket, a necklace with a single blue gemstone. "This belonged to my grandmother," he said. "She was not of a noble birth either, but she became the greatest queen this kingdom has ever known." Adama's breath caught. Lado gently placed the necklace around her neck. "I choose you for a reason, Adama," he said. "You're stronger than you think." Adama looked at him unsure of what to say. For the first time, she felt something dangerous stir in her chest. Not everyone was happy about the prince's growing affection for Adama. A noblewoman named Neima, daughter of a powerful chief, watched from the shadows, her nails digging into her palms. She had spent her entire life believing she would be the prince's wife. And now, a poor village girl had taken her place. That night, Neima gathered 3 other noble women. "She does not deserve him," Neima hissed. One of the women smirked. "Then we must make sure she does not stay." A plan was forming. Adama had survived the Queen Mother's test, but she was about to face something much worse. Late that night, Adama was awakened by a knock at her door. A servant girl stood outside looking nervous. "My lady," she whispered, "the prince wishes to see you in the royal gardens." Adama hesitated. Something felt strange, but she did not want to refuse the prince. She followed the girl through the palace, her heart beating fast. But when she reached the garden, she saw no one. Then a hand shoved her hard from the behind. Adama tumbled into a shallow pit, her arms scraping against the dirt. Laughter echoed above her. She looked up to see Neymar and other noblewomen staring down at her. "You thought you could replace us?" Neymar sneered. "You are nothing but a poor rat." Adama's heart pounded as she scrambled to her feet. "You will never be his queen," Neymar spat before turning away, leaving Adama alone in the darkness. Adama clenched her face. She will remember this and she will not forget. The next morning, the palace was in chaos. Prince Lado had found out what had happened. His anger was like a storm. He stormed into the great hall, his voice thundering. "Who did this?" The nobles fell silent. Neymar lowered her head, feigning innocence. But Lado's eyes were sharp. "If anyone dares touch Adama again," he said coldly, "they will know me." Mamas filled the room. Never had a prince defended a commoner like this, but Lado did not care. He turned to Adama, his eyes burning with something she had never seen before, something terrifying, something dangerous. It was loyalty. After the prince's outburst, the queen mother summoned Adama. "You're causing too much trouble," she said coldly. Adama met her gaze. "I did nothing wrong." The queen mother narrowed her eyes. "You're making my son weak," she said. "If you truly love him, you will leave." Adama's breath caught. "Leave?" She thought of the prince's kindness, the way he had defended her. Could she really walk away? She did not know it then, but she would soon have no choice. That night, a message was delivered to Adama's chamber. A single piece of letter. "Meet me at the old well before sunrise. Come alone." It was signed by Lado. Her heart raced. Had he changed his mind? Did he want to send her away? Desperate for answers, she slipped out of the palace and made her way to the well. The sky was still dark, the air thick with silence, but as she approached, she saw no sign of Lado. Instead, a group of masked men emerged from the shadows. Adama barely had time to scream before they grabbed her. Their hands rough, their whispers cruel. "Did you really think the prince could love someone like you?" One of them hissed. She struggled, panic rising. She has been lured into a trap, and this time no one was coming to save her. Adama thrashed against the men holding her heart pounding like a war drum. The grip was strong, their hands rough, but fear sharpened her mind. She would not go down without a fight. With all her strength, she beat the hand covering her mouth. The man yelled, his grip loosening just enough for her to kick him in the stomach. She didn't wait, she ran. Her bare feet pounded against the cold earth as she sprinted through the trees. Her breath dragged. Behind her, the men cast and gave chase. She didn't know where she was going, she just knew she had to keep running. And then a figure stepped out from the darkness. She barely stopped herself from colliding into him. Strong hands caught her shoulders, steadying her. "Adama," her breath caught. It was Prince Lado. The men chasing her skidded to a stop at the sight of the prince. For a moment, there was silence. Then Lado's expression changed, rage burning in his eyes. "Who sent you?" His voice was slow and dangerous. The men hesitated. Then one of them did something unexpected. He dropped to his knees. "Forgive us, my prince," he said, his head bowed. "We were ordered to do this." Adama's screen crawled. Lado's jaw tightened. "By who?" The man hesitated. "The Queen Mother." The words sent a shockwave through Adama's chest. She turned to Lado, expecting disbelief, but his face was unreadable. He exhaled slowly. "Leave," he commanded the men. They hesitated. "I said leave," Lado repeated, his voice sharper. The men fled into the night. Adama stood frozen, her mind spinning. "She wanted me gone," she whispered. Lado clenched his fist. "No," he said quietly. "She wanted you dead." The next morning, the entire palace trembled under the prince's anger. The doors to the queen mother's chambers burst open. Lado stormed in, his face thunderous. "You tried to have her killed?" he said coldly. The queen mother, seated gracefully, did not flinch. "I was protecting you," she said simply. Lado's hand trembled at his sides. "By murdering an innocent woman," the queen mother exhaled, as if speaking to a child. "You are a prince, Lado. You cannot marry a girl with no status. She weakens you." Lado's voice was low. "No, mother, you weaken me." The queen mother's eyes darkened. For the first time, she realized something. Her son was no longer a boy. He was a man, and he will not be controlled. Despite Lado's anger, the queen mother was not done. She summoned Adama privately. When Adama entered the royal chamber, she found the queen mother waiting, her expression calm but unreadable. "Sit," she said. Adama hesitated but obeyed. The queen mother studied her for a long time before speaking. "You think because the prince loves you, you have won?" she said. Adama remained silent. "But love is not enough," the queen mother continued. "A queen must be more than a lover. She must be powerful." Adama's throat tightened. What do you want from me? The Queen Mother smiled slightly. I will give you a choice, she said. Leave now and I will give you wealth beyond your dreams. You can return to your village as the richest woman in Uradi. Adama swallowed, and if I refuse, the Queen Mother leaned in, her voice dangerously soft. Then I will make your life a nightmare. Adama could not sleep that night. The Queen Mother's words haunted her. I will make your life a nightmare. She had spent her whole life being poor, being mocked. Wealth would not change everything. But if she left, she thought of Lado, of the way he had defended her, of the way he looked at her as if she was something precious. Adama clenched her face. She would not run. At sunrise, she walked to the Queen Mother's chamber. The older woman looked at her expectantly. Adama met her gaze. I am staying. For the first time, the Queen Mother's expression faltered. Then slowly she smiled. Very well, she said. Adama knew that smile. It was a warning. The war had just begun. The palace felt cold after Adama's decision to stay. Servants whispered behind her back, and the noble women watched her with eyes full of resentment. But the worst of them was the Queen Mother. 3 days after their conversation, a royal maid brought Adama a tray of food. The Queen Mother sent this as a piece of offering, the maid said, her eyes avoiding Adama's. Adama hesitated. The plate was filled with golden rice and spice stew, the aroma rich and inviting. Was it truly a peace offering or a final attempt to get rid of her? She picked up the spoon, her heart pounding. But before she could take a bite, she had a muffled gasp. The maid was staring at her with wide eyes, her hands trembling. What is it? Adama asked. The maid hesitated, then suddenly dropped to her knees. My lady, please, do not eat it. Adama's blood ran cold. The food was poison. Adama stood frozen, staring at the poisoned meal. For a moment, rage burned inside her. Did the Queen Mother truly think she would be so easy to kill? She exhaled slowly. If the Queen Mother wanted war, she would get one. With a steady hand, Adama picked up the tray and walked out of her chamber. The guards at the Queen Mother's door stiffened when she approached. I have a gift for the Queen Mother, Adama said sweetly. They hesitated, then let her in. The Queen Mother sat by the window, a satisfied smile on her face. Adama placed the tray on the table in front of her. I wanted to thank you for your kindness, Adama said. It will be an honor to share this meal with you. The Queen Mother's smile froze. She glanced at the tray. Adama lifted a spoonful of rice and held it out. After all, she said, if this food was meant for me, then surely it is safe for you too. The Queen Mother's fingers twitched against her chair. Silence stretched between them. And then the Queen Mother laughed. It was soft at first, then full of something dark and dangerous. You are not as weak as I thought, she said, her eyes gleaming. Adama set the spoon down. No, she said quietly. I am not. For the first time, the Queen Mother looked at her with something new, respect. This passed, and the Queen Mother did not try to harm Adama again, but Adama knew better than to trust her silence. One night, as she walked in the palace gardens, she overheard harsh voices behind a stone pillar. It will be easy, a voice whispered. She recognized it instantly. It was Neema. Curious, Adama moved closer. The prince will never marry you, another voice said, as long as Adama is here. Neema's voice sharpened. Then we must make sure she isn't. Adama's chest tightened. Neema and the allies were planning something worse than the Queen Mother had tried, and this time they will not fail. The next morning, chaos erupted in the palace. A royal guard burst into Adama's chamber, his face grim. My lady, he said, the Queen Mother summoned you. Adama's stomach twisted. When she arrived at the throne room, the Queen Mother sat tall, her eyes cold. Before her, a group of guards held a man to the ground. It was the royal treasurer. Adama's breath caught. This man, the Queen Mother said, has confessed that you bribed him to steal from the palace treasury. Adama's head snapped up. What? The punishment for stealing from the royal treasury, she said, is banishment. Gasps filled the room. Adama's hand clenched. She turned to the treasurer. Tell me the truth, she demanded. Who forced you to say this? The man's eyes darted nervously to the Queen Mother, then to Neema. Adama understood. They had threatened him. Lado suddenly stepped forward. This is ridiculous, he said angrily. Adama will never steal. But the Queen Mother sighed. Lado, she said, you are blinded by love. The evidence is clear. Adama's heart pounded. She had fought so hard. Was this how it would end? Just as the girls moved toward Adama, a voice rang out. Stop! The entire room turned. Lado stood tall, his expression unreadable. If you accuse my future wife, he said coldly, then you accuse me as well. Heavy silence fell. Adama's heart skipped. Future wife? The Queen Mother's face darkened. Lado. No, he said sharply. I will not let you ruin her. If you force her out, I will leave as well. Gasps filled the room. The Queen Mother stiffened. She had lost. Slowly she exhaled, then she smiled. Very well, she said. Let us prepare for a royal wedding. Adama blinked. It couldn't be this easy. Then she saw it, the glint in the Queen Mother's eyes. The battle was over, but the war had just begun. This story teaches that love sees beyond status. Prince Lado's decision to choose Adama shows that genuine love is not based on wealth, beauty, or status. In today's society, many relationships are built on material gain, but this story reminds us that true love values character, strength, and loyalty over superficial things. This story reflects how society often judges people based on their backgrounds, but those with pure hearts and strong wills can rise above even the toughest challenges. Thank you so much for watching. Your support means everything. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. Stay tuned for more exciting tales coming your way. See you in the next one, besties.